So we'll go through this next section quickly. We're going to review each team's season in a nutshell so far. Okay. So we're going to go through all 10 teams. We can probably go through the last couple of teams pretty quickly. We don't need to talk a lot about Haas or Alfa Romeo, but let's start with the leading team. We'll go by constructor. So Mercedes this season, what would you guys grade Mercedes season? Like, is this a B plus for them because they're not as far as
B plus?
B plus.
I'd give them like a B, but that's just because of like what they've actually done. Like they've been pretty lucky, and I think that's why they look better than they actually are. Because I think you guys have already seen that like Lewis has done like significantly less points than he did last year at this time. But he's still first, I think. And so I think he's just really lucky that like, that crash happened and then he was able to take so many points away from Max and all that. And there was another race, I forgot which one, where he was able to come from last as well and pass Max and take even more points away.
Wasn't that Imola too, where he just basically rose up the grid pretty like he?
Yeah, I think.
I don't know if he went from last, but he definitely went from like way far down and got into the points.
Yeah, because he lost that front wing there, right?
Yeah, he got bumped by Max. They don't talk about that, no. But so it's a high B from you, Justin, and it's a B plus from you, Patrick.
Yeah.
Because I think they've had a good season. I mean, Lewis, there's always going to be the debate about if it's luck or skill with him. Because I think he is a skilled driver. You don't just come from last to second accidentally. But then there is some luck in Sebastian Vettel getting a DQ. So you're kind of taking
like,
both.
Their car isn't like exactly like the best, like
it's certainly not as good as it has been in years past.
Especially especially when it's in the back of like the pack.
Yeah.
It doesn't do too hot. Like it's really good for being like first, like Mercedes always has been. So I think considering that, Lewis does a really good job. And I think that's a really hard job that he has, is to like go like to come through the whole pack and overtake in such like hard situations.
I want to discuss Valtteri's contract a little bit more, but I think he's done as a driver, which is probably not great for Mercedes, but as a driver, he's kind of been this season.
He's kind of been more average than usual lately, just in the last couple of races. But honestly,
I feel like Mercedes like is not like ignoring the fact that like Valtteri's a really good like complement and like doesn't really cause like serious problems. It's not like Max and Daniel Ricciardo like situation.
Sure.
He's able, like he's like pretty calm in most situations and doesn't like cause a lot of problems for Lewis, and Lewis is able to like succeed so much probably because of Valtteri. And I think they're worried that like it could be like a Rosberg and Lewis situation like in the future if they were to bring someone else in. Hopefully George.
We'll discuss that later on. Red Bull Racing. Is this also a B plus or is this maybe an A minus for Red Bull?
I was gonna give them a B.
B? Okay.
I'd give them a B plus, almost A minus. I agree with like your initial grading.
Like I think they're pretty close. I think for whatever you're giving Mercedes, they either should be at the same level, maybe a little bit behind. Like I'm not opposed to a B with Red Bull, but it's weird.
Red Bull, a lot of the time it isn't their fault or that they just draw the short straw, but they just haven't been able to capitalize on places where they should be. Like they should be above Mercedes right now. If you look back at the races.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of like out of hand things that like Red Bull is like facing, and they've been a bit more unlucky compared to Mercedes. But at the same time, I feel like there's more like things they have done, like even like kind of strategy wise, that like they probably could have like capitalized on a bit more and done a bit better, and probably could have put them in like a slightly better position that like they'd be ahead right now going into the break.
Because you got to think there was a point when they had like the clear better car.
In France, they had the better car.
Yeah.
And now it seems Mercedes has almost closed that gap to a degree. So
well, I think those were why the upgrades at Silverstone were so key. Like that's probably, I don't want to say that's been the biggest difference, but it certainly has to be mentioned when you talk about this season and just like the kind of the momentum swing a little bit going over from Red Bull to Mercedes.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on Red Bull? I really like Sergio Perez and what he's done with Red Bull this season.
I'm hoping they keep him for next year. I think he's really good with Max.
I think he makes sense, honestly. Like I didn't think he did at first, but he's actually like, and like he's been a little bit inconsistent, but I mean, I know it's a very difficult car to drive. So and like being Max's teammate is probably not easy. But I think just because he's been around so long that like he like understands like first driver and second driver positions in the team, and he's able to like pull strengths from that.
We'll discuss it again. We'll discuss this later on. I remember in the last race when Nico Rosberg was saying about how, you know, Pierre Gasly wants to try and get that Red Bull seat back. And it's just like, I'll be honest. I think you'd be really stupid not to bring Perez back next year.
Mm-hmm.
I think you would be like really galaxy braining it if you don't bring Perez back for maybe another 1 year or even a 2-year deal.
Yeah.
That's just me though.
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone that stands out to replace him enough that you shouldn't bring him back next year because he's been putting in good results. He's been getting he has a win, right?
Yeah, he won
He's
in
got a win. He's got the pole.
Yeah. We'll go with Ferrari because they're ahead on the standings according to the app. I think Ferrari should get a B at least.
Yeah, I think they get a B. I think they've been a little bit on the unlucky side as well, but I don't think they've done anything like crazy to stand out as well. So I'd give them a B.
It's almost a little bit of a rebuilding year after last year, I think, is the thing with Ferrari.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick, any thoughts on Ferrari? Scuderia?
I was just gonna give them a B+ because they're doing
Okay.
a lot more consistent compared to where I thought they'd be going in from last year.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason I'd say that.
I mean, I'm slightly unlucky in having Charles in fantasy because I think I made him, what was it, my double or triple or whatever, and he didn't even survive the first turn in Budapest. So that's cool.
I remember you told me that the night before the race, and
Yeah.
I almost switched it to my double.
Yeah, I was because I was confident in that for like a couple of weeks. I'm like, yeah, you know what, Charles has been doing good. I'll give him the triple or whatever it was, and then it's like, no, you're not getting the triple, Ian. You're a dumbass.
Well, you gave him the Mega Driver, right?
Mega Driver, that's what it was. I gave him the Mega Driver, and it's just like, no, you're not supposed to do well in Formula One fantasy. What do you think this is, Ian?
Those negative points multiply, eh?
Oh, you don't say. You don't say.
They like really multiply when they're negative.
Yeah, it's really bad. McLaren. We'll talk about McLaren a little bit, as I think they're probably kind of with Ferrari in like the B+ area. Again, I would like a little bit more from Ricardo. That's just me personally.
I feel like the difference between them is like Ferrari's got like two drivers that are really like they're really good for each other, and I think they're ready to like have a better car that's like able to fight for first place. Whereas I feel like with McLaren, Lando's ready, but Daniel's not necessarily ready yet. And I think next year's car, if it's like an improvement, that they'll be able to compete as well, as long as Daniel can pull his weight a bit more, because Lando's doing a lot of work right now.
This might be a stupid question, but what pair of drivers would you rather have? Would you rather have, like, you could be any engine you want. You can have a Mercedes engine, but would you rather have the Sainz and Leclerc pairing or the Norris Ricardo pairing?
At this point in time, I'd go with the Ferrari pairing, just because Ricardo hasn't had as much time in that car. He hasn't figured out the braking yet. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
And I feel like the same, that those two drivers are pretty consistent. Like I think they like push the car to where it like should be, considering like they kind of had to reset their car, I think 2 years ago. So yeah, I'd say that too.
I don't know. Maybe I would think I'd rather just have the McLaren drivers and just figure it out. Like I think I would rather trust those two drivers and just figure out whatever engine.
I think it's like a higher risk, higher reward thing.
Yeah, that's
them.
That's
I
probably
agree with you,
it.
like in the long term, McLaren drivers are definitely the move, but in the short term, like one
If,
season, I take the Ferrari.
if you're trying to win right now,
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're
because
trying.
if Daniel could like pull off like some solid like finishes with Lando's already like pretty consistent finishes, they'd be a really good pair. But obviously right now it's not necessarily the case.
Let's
You
throw it over
also got
to.
to be worried that maybe Ricardo doesn't even figure out the brakes in the McLaren car, because you gotta understand, like, he's built for that Red Bull car he was in, that late braking, that like
Mhm.
I don't know how to describe it, but
He
It's a
can
little
never
more-
figure
a
out
little
the
more aggressive.
he can never figure out the brakes in a Renault, and
he was there 2 years, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
2 years.
2 years and he still couldn't figure out the brakes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
actually,
needs that like the bitiness of the Red Bull.
yeah, I like. It was weird. I like read this whole like in-depth thing about like this interview with Daniel and like his like PR person talking about like his like racing style and how he's like figuring out the car and like he thinks he's still on the right track, which is obviously what everyone's gonna say. But apparently it's like apparently the McLaren car is like pretty aggressive, like we think the Red Bull is. But it's just a different type of aggressive that like he isn't able to like control and maximize yet. But he says he's like got the average like amount of like strengths out of the car. He just wants to like maximize it, which he hasn't yet, like Lando.
It's a Mercedes aggression versus a Honda aggression, which usually the Mercedes aggression is like the Lewis Hamilton, cutting in on someone when you shouldn't be cutting in on someone. That's what Ricardo needs to figure out.
He's just got to take a few people out along the way.
Yeah, exactly. It's gonna be very aggressive.
Maybe we
literally.
can put 55 G's next crash. I don't know.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Went there. Okay.
Let's throw it over to number 5 in the constructors, Alpine, who have 77 points. C plus B. I know Ocon just won, and they are top 5 in the constructors, but
I didn't see them really being there.
I agree with you, and I think they've been like, take out that one race that was arguably like they were handed the top 5 positions, right?
Yeah.
But like take out that race, I think they've been very average.
Yeah, they haven't done anything to stand out at all.
Yeah.
The reason why they won that was probably because of Vettel and Alonso,
right?
like holding them back and really making a team move. But yeah, they really haven't done anything or like made any like significant improvements.
Like they've been hovering around points for the most part. Like they've been hovering around like top 10 for the most part, which I mean is not an awful place to be in. It's just you kind of want a little bit more with Alonso.
And they haven't really moved up either. Like from where
Yeah.
they've been, like their average, it's pretty much the same throughout the whole season.
And I think they've also been there because like Austin Martin has been worse than I thought they'd be this year. So
yeah,
Alpine really hasn't had any challengers in that position. Other than Gasly, I guess, because Tsunoda hasn't been anywhere near it.
Hey, he's working on it. Don't.
So I'm just happy to see Tsunoda finish and not be swearing at his like,
not be getting like track limit penalties for exceeding track limits and
or pit lane
speed. Pit lane speed or infractions.
And when's the last time he didn't crash in practice?
Yeah,
he's getting there. Don't worry, he's getting there.
He's the definition of a rookie.
C plus for me for Alpine. Is there anything different? Any other C, B minus? Yeah, C plus. Alpha Tauri. I'm gonna go with a B minus for Alpha Tauri, mostly because of Gasly. I think Gasly is probably one of the most underappreciated, underrated drivers right now, and he's just one of my favorites. That's why it's a B plus for me. Yeah.
I definitely think I think they're like a B minus, maybe even pushing a B, but it's purely Gasly. And I think everyone looks down on him because he's the one that got demoted from Red Bull. And so he's seen as like this, like now bad driver that, can't win anything and with like a really good car. But I think he's done really well this year. And I think that's why people are talking about him trying to move back to Red Bull. But, I don't know if that's going to happen.
I don't think it's going to happen.
No, I don't think so either. And not even the drivers, like the engineers, because they have a really good car this year. like better than I thought it would be for at the start of the season.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with AlphaTauri is that I think Gasly's a B- driver. Like, I think that's just who he is. For the most part, he's a B- driver. He can be a B+, but for the most part, he's hovering like the B- B area. Yuki is either like a B+ or a C+. Like, Yuki is like either on whatever extreme on any given weekend. He could be really good or he could be really poor. And that's why I came with the B- conclusion for AlphaTauri.
I was reading a couple articles yesterday about how if Yuki doesn't get like a Japanese backing paid seat, then he might actually lose his seat.
I wouldn't be surprised by that.
Because there's some good drivers in F2 right now.
I know.
I wouldn't be surprised. Just I feel like Yuki's not necessarily the easiest like person to work with as well, and that like puts the teams off a little bit. And I don't know like what the relationship is with like him and like Gasly is, but like I'm sure it's probably not like the strongest as well. So there's nothing really like holding him there other than like his previous performances in like other races.
Him going back to F2 would not be the worst thing in the world.
No, not for him.
No, I don't think so.
With Honda leaving, he may not have as much pull in F1 anyway. So
yeah,
fair
maybe
point.
he needs a bit more time.
Aston Martin 7th. They're like a D for me, almost like a C-.
I'll go C-.
I'd give him a C just because I think Vettel does a pretty good job. But that's really it. I'm giving
them like there, like no one mentions them. They just
like the only reason why they do well is because the only reason why they do well is because those positions are really given to them. I think Vettel can put up a good fight, but that's just because he's like an experienced and like pretty good driver. I don't think it's because of their car. I think their car really sucks, actually.
Their car has got worse from last year. Like, the car has definitely decreased in performance from last year. Yeah. Lance Stroll, I know, was like I was gonna say in Azerbaijan, like he was actually like looked like he was. I think he was gonna finish in the top 5 in Azerbaijan, wasn't he? And then the whole tire controversy there kind of fucked him. We know Stroll's a paid driver. Like we know Stroll's paid driver. He's a fine driver. He's okay. I don't know. This team is not as good as AlphaTauri.
No.
They're probably not as good as Alpine.
Which is sad because that's where they thought they were going to be at the start of the year.
Yeah, they thought they'd be beating Alpine.
I think you were talking them up a lot in our we were talking at the start of the year.
Me?
Aston Martin, no? Or you just
I know I was saying because I saw their car in testing when they did testing in Bahrain, and they had either like a bunch of mistakes or like somebody was driving like shit. And it's just like, yeah, they're not. Maybe it'd be like before testing, I'm like, they could be something. Okay. But then a testing came along. It's like, no, I'm out on this because I just don't see how the car can compete as well. Maybe Vettel can do something. Stroll is Stroll. I don't know if Stroll, I don't know if there's any more room to grow for Lance Stroll. Like, I don't know where the path forward is for Lance Stroll to be a top 5 driver in Formula One. I don't know if he's a top 10. I don't know if he's a top 10 driver in Formula One right now.
If he's top 10, he's like 9th or 10th.
Yeah, like he's just getting in. Like, I don't know. I don't see the pathway for him to get to top 5.
I think the only way he does that is like if he was to make like a big move, like to like a different team. But I don't think that's gonna happen.
I don't know what will happen
because obviously his dad is like a part owner, which owns the team. But yeah, like that would be the only way I see him making like a drastic improvement for him to like be at prime age and like be in a good car, like for everything to work out. That'd be the only way I see it. But I don't think realistically it'll happen.
D plus, C minus, C for Aston Martin. That's kind of where we're at.
I give him a C.
C,
just because of Vettel, but
you're awfully generous.
Yeah, maybe C minus.
Williams. We'll discuss Williams racing here. A C.
I give him a C, maybe a C plus, but C plus mostly because of the driver, not really because of the car.
C plus because of Russell, like, and he's been
Yeah.
qualifying
And, like,
really well for
and,
Williams.
Yeah, he's definitely done really well. Like he's definitely improved a lot. I'll give him that. And I think Latifi's done okay, like in the race. He sucks in qualifying. He's terrible, but in the race, I think he does like all right, like with who he's competing with at least in the back of the pack. But
He should be better than both the Haas drivers, which is
Yeah.
all that's really being asked of him. So he's kind of just doing what he's asked.
yeah, considering the car he's got and things like that. But
So a C for you then, Justin. Patrick, you're gonna
I
round
was
it
just
out
gonna
with
go with a C plus because
C plus.
other than Russell, there's been really no surprises, nothing like too bad. It gets tough down there when you start getting into the pay drivers, but
yeah,
Alfa Romeo D plus.
yeah, pretty much. They're not really in the equation.
They're
They're just hoping for a point at this point.
I don't know if they actually know what they're doing. So they don't. So pretty much you have Kimi, who is very complacent.
Yeah.
Who's kind of just there. I mean, he probably should just retire, but instead he's taking up a spot because he gets this, he gets paid still quite a bit. Giovinazzi. I know this is his episode, so we shouldn't be shit talking him, but like,
I just don't think he really adds too much value to like the team. Like I think Kimi at least like brings like a lot of like attention to Alfa Romeo just because everyone likes the Iceman, but I don't really see like Giovinazzi, like he isn't like a crazy good driver and he's not really standing out and he's not bringing that much attention and publicity to the team as well.
I do want to say I two things. One, he's not somebody who strikes fear to you. Like you don't hear Antonio Giovinazzi. He's like, oh fuck, I gotta look
coming up behind Vettel.
Yeah, it's just like you're not really intimidated by him.
Mhm.
And then the second thing, I think in the last Drive to Survive, I'm pretty sure Will Buxton said something along the lines of like he's wicked fast, and that's all he gave him credit for. Like basically he's fast, and if he can figure out how to actually drive, he can be a good driver in Formula One.
I'm sure I think he can be like a pretty quick driver, but I think like when you're in the actual race, I think just with like every other factor, he isn't good. But I think like he can be quick, and that's probably why he's still got the seat. But yeah, I don't think he's that great in my opinion.
So D plus for Alfa Romeo.
I was going to give them a C minus just because of those bottom three. They at least have like some race pace.
Okay.
But yeah. I would give them higher, but just because they seem like they're going nowhere. They have no clue they're doing, just like you said, Ian.
There's no plan. I don't see where the pathway is. Kind of like what I mentioned with Stroll. I don't see where the pathway is to be a top 5 team.
Yeah, there isn't. They didn't really bring in. They could have brought in a young guy to put beside Kimi, but they didn't. So I don't get why they even brought him in. So
Yuki to Alfa Romeo,
or even Mick.
Okay, maybe
that would actually be interesting.
I don't think
it's definitely an improvement over Haas.
Yeah. Well,
it's the time to do it with the new cars next year, honestly.
Yeah, I think Steiner's getting a little frustrated with like Mick's like negotiations and like future, just because it's so complicated as to like what Ferrari wants to do with him. So
well, no offense, Gunter, but like Schumacher kind of has more leverage over you.
Yeah,
whole team.
He's not staying in the long term. You know what you're signing up for.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like a 1 or 2 year contract.
2 max. Yeah.
Let's talk about then Haas quickly. Schumacher, I believe, will be a champion in this sport by the end of the decade at some point, probably with Ferrari. I'm not really concerned about how well he does with Haas this season, even though he's actually looked okay. Like he was in a top 10. Granted, there were so many crashes, so many retirements, but Schumacher was actually running top 10 in Hungary. I really like him.
Yeah, and
So do
he
I.
was
I love Schumacher.
Yeah.
he was also like defending. I forgot what race it was, but like there was one race where he was defending like decently well, with like a few people like coming up.
I feel like that was the last race in Hungary.
Yeah, I think it
Yeah,
was.
that's when like Max got stuck behind him.
Yeah, and like Max had like he had like pretty much half his car gone.
I was gonna say Max had like a 65% like performing
his,
car.
like, one of his
Whole
floorboards was
on the
gone.
right side was gone.
Yeah,
And he was like Schumacher was trying to defend Max, trying to defend Lewis. Schumacher. Yeah. So I like Schumacher.
and he didn't do it in a dangerous way. I
No.
think that's like what was important, because Mazepin would have just probably hit him, but but I feel like because he like defended, but he didn't like take it to like a point where he's causing crashes and it's like a dangerous move. I think that like showed his strengths really well.